What's up, crawlers, guild masters, and our beloved and respected Borant Corporation overlords? Welcome back to Dungeon Crawler Files Podcast, the best podcast in the settled systems that brings you play-by-play discussions of Dungeon Crawler Carl. We are your co-hosts Spencer, Gabe, and Sam, and today we'll be going through books 1 and 2, and full spoilers are ahead for the first two books, so be aware of that before you proceed. If you'd like to talk to us about Dungeon Crawler Carl or any other books, TV shows, or movies, you can reach out to us using the links in our description. That includes Twitter, Discord, and Patreon if you would like to watch live as we record these episodes. And you support the podcast, you help us pay for Adobe Premiere and all sorts of other subscription services that we use to run the podcast. Thank you to our patrons that are either watching live or watching later. You guys are fantastic. Other than that, you can comment down below. We love hearing from you guys, and we love chatting with you down there. But without further ado, we're going to get right into talking about Dungeon Crawler Carl, because I think we have a lot to say about it. What's up, guys? We've been talking backstage about Dungeon Crawler Carl for a little while now. And I think we all have really interesting thoughts on this series, and I'm really curious to hear kind of what you guys thought initially, like when you very first started the book, and what your expectations were going in, and then how they evolved. Because I know that Gabe, I don't even know if you remember this, but a while ago, you started Dungeon Crawler Carl, and I think you DNF'd it, and you were like, it wasn't bad, I just didn't feel like going on with it at the time. And so I'm curious to hear from you, being such a big fan of lit RPG in general. You read the Land series, He Who Fights with Monsters, Sufficiently Advanced Magic, Cradle, all those kind of books. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on, you had your DNF, and then we decided to read it for the podcast, and kind of how your thoughts have kind of evolved on it. Let's start with you.
Yeah, so I do remember that. I probably got halfway through the first book and just wasn't feeling it. And I will say, even this read through the first book, I was it took a long time for like me to get invested,
get into it,
I guess, or interested. Because I don't know, I have a bad habit of trying to compare it to those other books that I've read, and I certainly think that some of those are better. Although that aside, once I did get into it and kind of felt more of the characters and the whole process of how this world works, I started to really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. The comedy value is just good. Superb, and the Land has the same exact just excellent one-liners and incredible comedy that's hilarious, and so that was really cool. And then also the world building is wicked. It's it's just a crazy idea and a crazy story concept for somebody to think up and then write about. It's the most outlandish, insanity you can ever imagine, which is, that's what lit RPG is, right? You can make any world you want, and put any system in it you want and make it work. So yeah, I am enjoying it now. I think book 1 was a slow start for me, probably not as invested, but then kind of the end of book 1 into book 2, and then I've read more. I'm really starting to enjoy. And it's crazy because, I've read book 4, and it's hard to think that stuff could get crazier,
Yeah.
Yep. So, and obviously they've got 7 more books. So
I think there's 7 out.
There's
right?
7 total.
Out. Okay,
yeah.
I thought there was 11, so just a couple more.
But he's planning. I've been listening to, because I'll save most of my thoughts, but I've been listening to a lot of interviews with him and Jeff Hayes, the narrator, and it sounds like it's probably going to be like a 15 book series, it sounds like,
Wow,
something up in
that's
those numbers.
crazy.
And it sounds like he's putting them out pretty fast
Yeah,
because the second book came out in 2021, which means there's been like roughly like almost 2 books a year, like 1.5 books a year, somewhere around that number. So we're at least getting one a year, which is
yeah,
really, really nice. If we're at 7 now, then that's a pretty good pace for him putting books out.
yeah.
And then you mentioned the world building. Again, I'm gonna save most of my thoughts for a minute, but the world building, you've read book 4, and we were actually talking before the podcast. You accidentally went from book 2 to book 4, and so you're currently going back to book 3 and reading that. And in especially 3 and 4, there is so much big world building stuff that is just fantastic. I think I messaged the group chat and I was like, the end of book 4 blew my mind. Like there's so much in that epilogue in book 4 that it gave me that moment of like, oh, like I see what they're doing here with the world building. I see what they're trying to do. Um, and yeah, it was a really cool moment. So how would you say, real quick before we move on to Sam, having read The Land and He Who Fights with Monsters, for you, is Dungeon Crawler Carl in the same conversation as those?
As of right now, I would say that's probably 50-50.
Okay,
In some parts, yes. Other parts, no. But I think the potential is there. I think that I just need to read a little bit more because as it sits, it would be my third choice out of those two. But I'm
sure.
really really enjoying it a lot. So I think
What
that
what do you
that could change.
think? What do you think the other ones do better than Dungeon Crawler Carl?
Kind of more of a, I guess I don't really know how to phrase this, but kind of more of a simpler story, a kind of a simpler narrative, I guess. Um, Simpler story as in like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like these books are really complex, and I kind of like we know who like the bad guy is, but it's
Kind of.
kind of, and we don't really know what we're doing. Even in book 4, well, book 4 we
Hmm.
kind of see a
No,
little bit
you're
of
right. Yeah.
the big plot, but but that's with that said, I think the potential's there if
So
we can
you
get.
so you like the simpler story of like The Land and He Who
Yeah,
Fights with
and
Monsters.
I like the RPG elements, but this one is like the land, and especially He Who Fights with Monsters. Like I don't even, it's lit RPG, but it's kind of not. You've read some of them. This is like very much just a video game.
Okay, interesting. Sam, what did you think going into Dungeon Crawler Carl? Because I know you haven't read lit RPG and you were a little wary of it, as I typically am. Um, and I had texted the group chat and I had said, man, I'm like, I am not a lit RPG person, but this series is going crazy on YouTube right now. Like, Bookborn just read it and she fell in love with it. Captured in Words has read it and he fell in love with it. Daniel Green did the same thing. And so I'm like, man, all these people who I would not normally associate with lit RPG are getting really into this book. Um, and so I texted the chat and I was like, hey, let's just like read this for the podcast. And you were actually the first person to hop right in and start it. So tell me about your journey with Dungeon Crawler, Carl.
I think you caught me at like a really good moment where I had
Mm,
just kind of finished like another book that I liked, and I was like, all right, I want something new. And
right.
when I looked up Dungeon Crawler Carl just to see what it was about, I saw that it was free on Kindle Unlimited. So I was just like, okay, F it, let me just jump in. You know what I mean?
Right.
And the premise alone really pulled me in right away. I've always had a
Hmm.
weird kind of fascination with what is it, like the Nine Gates of Hell, where
Oh,
like the
yeah.
down you go. And like this was very reminiscent of that to me, just in video game form. Um,
Right.
I don't think it was overdone with the, +2 to this and +5 to that and all of that with like strength and constitution and whatnot. I can definitely agree with Gabe though. I feel like the further on it's gone, it has gotten a little complicated in some parts where I'm just like, I think this just went over my head and I don't think I'm going to get it. I've gone back and read it 3 times now. And I
Oh, wow.
not like the passage that I was reading,
Oh, okay. I see.
not like the book, but like went
Yeah.
back to be like, okay, am I comprehending this correctly? I don't think I am.
Yeah.
But no, I love it. I love the characters. I love the one-liners. As someone who, watches a lot of pop culture stuff, I loved all the like references that are just thrown in there that I found absolutely hilarious. And no, I really, really enjoyed these. And it wasn't that I didn't think I would. It was just I'd never read one before, so I didn't have anything to compare it to.
Yeah.
And to me, this is phenomenal, but it
Hmm.
now makes me want to read other kinds. And I'm like, okay, like I
Yeah.
like to compare and see how it holds up against others.
You
So
definitely should read other kinds.
yeah.
I've
Yeah.
got several I could give you.
Yeah. Just from, I've only read a couple, but from, I would definitely not recommend The Land. I think I like genuinely like did not like those books at all. But Gabe has me reading He Who Fights with Monsters, and I think that's a good middle ground between The Land and this. And I'm not like a super fan of He Who Fights with Monsters. I've enjoyed my time with it, especially because it's like a way to connect to Gabe better because he really enjoys it. Um, and so, but it has some of the same elements. Like it has fairly good humor. I would not say it's like as good of humor as Dungeon Crawler Carl, but it has the humor. That element is there for sure. And then it has the same like RPG elements. They're gonna be, in my opinion, more complicated than Dungeon Crawler Carl. Um, but it has those elements if you've been enjoying that, and like the constant like power ups and the main character getting more and more powerful every single book. And so it definitely has that there. So I would say if you want to branch out to other ones, then He Who Fights with Monsters would be the logical next step. I've also heard that Sufficiently Advanced Magic is also really good, and it has the tower thing where they're moving like up the tower, right, Gabe? They're like they're kind of
They've
going
got
level
these
by level.
things called spires, and a big part of the magic system is climbing these spires.
Hmm.
And
Oh,
it's like level
yeah.
by level, and
Really?
each room's like a puzzle, or kind of could be a puzzle or like a battle, and the goal is to get to the top, but nobody's done it yet.
Right.
Nice.
Cool. So Sam, were you hooked like right away, would you say? Like right when you started the book, were you pretty hooked?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I couldn't put it down. I blew through the first book really, really fast. Uh and I really liked it. The thing I liked about some of the first 2 books, I feel like there was a lot of like boss battles, and I feel
Hmm.
like they fall off a little bit in
They
book
do.
3. Um and that was, I think I realized that was like some of my favorite parts were the boss battles and stuff like that. So book 3, we're not getting there, but
Hmm.
yeah, I really liked just the whole premise of it, and I like the buddy comedy and the threat looming over them at all times, and the
Yeah.
rules changing every level, and
Hmm.
Mordecai is amazing. So I
Yeah.
really, yeah, it just really pulled me in. I couldn't put it down. My husband's been almost annoyed with me because he's like,
Oh,
"You're always on your phone." I'm like, "But it's a Kindle Unlimited. I only have it on my
yeah.
phone. Like, I can't sit here and read this."
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you'll really like book 4 then because I'm not going to give anything away, but the rules um when they get into whatever level it is in book 4, there's like these different sectors.
No, I
And
started it.
okay, and each sector has like
Yeah.
very different rules than
Mhm.
than the next one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you'll like book 4 a lot.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Um, but yeah, I would agree with you guys. It definitely gets more complicated as it goes on to the point where, um, I finished book 4 this week, and I got to the end of it, and I was like, I remember what happens, but I can't remember why it happened. And so I think what I want to do is I went back and reread 1 and 2 the past couple days, and I'm like, I'm gonna want to reread book 3 and book 4, just so that I'm prepared to like have a discussion on it, because I don't think right now I could like actually have like a qualified discussion on book 4, because there it just gets like, it's not like crazy complicated. It's not like I don't know what is going on anymore, but it is like, I listen at work, and I don't have a lot of time to like backtrack and be like, wait, let me redo this chapter, or like let me like re-listen to this like really carefully.
Mhm.
And so I think I need that time to like go back over it to like fully understand it. So I'm hoping that book I hope that the complexity of it stays interesting, but that it kind of plateaus and it doesn't become something like The Land or He Who Fights with Monsters, where you're getting so many like numbers thrown at you. Because that's kind of what I haven't been a fan of in the past. But I don't think Dungeon Crawler Carl is doing that yet. I don't think it's even close to that. So yeah, I'll go into my thoughts. So for me, like up until this point, I have really, really, really not liked lit RPG, especially The Land. Gabe tried to get me to read it. I read the first 2 books, and I was just like, this just isn't for me. Like, I didn't vibe with the humor. I didn't vibe with the world. I didn't vibe with like every 5 minutes. And especially listening on audiobook, it's really hard because it'll be like, you've gained a level, +5 to strength, +5 to constitution, +5 to, and it's like literally like I counted one time and there was 8 minutes in an audiobook of just statistics being listed off. And I was like, this is not for me. Like, I am going brain dead. And then I listened to He Who Fights with Monsters, which I thought was better. And this is a book that Gabe really loves. And I was like, you listen to so many of my books that I love and that I make you read. I'm like, the least I can do is listen to He Who Fights with Monsters. And I really enjoy it. I need to consume it in like small bursts. Like I can't just like binge He Who
Mhm.
Fights with Monsters because I'll want to blow my brains out. But I can listen, I can listen in chunks, and I enjoy it that way, and that's fine. Um, and so when I started reading Dungeon Crawler Carl, I was afraid that it was going to be the same thing. I was afraid that I was just going to be like, man, like I can appreciate that everybody loves this, but it is just not for me. Like it's just not doing the thing that I want. Um, and I think the thing that Dungeon Crawler Carl does so differently than the other ones, and granted, I'm only a couple books into each of the other series that I started in Lit RPG. But I think what Dungeon Crawler Carl excels at is characters. I think the characters are so incredible, and they're so like deep, and they actually have like reasoning to them. In the other lit RPG that I've read, it was kind of this thing where somebody gets dropped into this video game world, and their reaction to it is kind of like, oh, cool, I'm in a video game. And then they just go on with their life, never questioning like why they're there, or thinking about like the outside world, or thinking about like, I'd really like to get back home, or anything like that. They just kind of accept their new reality and go on with it. And there may be reasons for that. Like I said, I'm only a couple books in, so it may be that in book 4 of He Who Fights with Monsters, like it turns out that there's been something affecting his brain that hasn't made him think about the outside world that much, or something. There very well may be something like that. Um, But what I really appreciated about Dungeon Crawler Carl is that it is at the epicenter of what is going on. Like Carl is always thinking about the outside world and how the aliens coming in has like affected the earth and has affected their way of life. And he's like, I bet everybody I ever knew and loved is dead. And like he's always thinking about these things. So he's not really like accepting this new life. He's trying to fight through it to get back to whatever normal life is after the dungeon. And he even says like at the end of every like big encounter, he's like, you can't break me, I'll break you, like fuck you. And
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of like his goal, is to like beat this thing. He's not trying to like accept it and live within it, he's trying to like rise above it. And that is something that was like super 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 important for me, because it's the thing that like really irritated me about the other series, where I'm like, so you're just accepting that you're in this like new world and you're not like questioning it at all. Um, and so I really like that. I really like the characters. I don't want this to be a rant about, other lit RPG series, and I promise that this episode like won't focus on that. But for me, in the other series, what I've read so far is the characters felt very flat. And they felt kind of like archetypes of a character and just kind of one note. Again, maybe they grow, maybe they become more complex. And I would definitely say that He Who Fights with Monsters is better in this way. I think that Jason Asano, the main character, is like legitimately a cool character that I enjoy reading. Um, but I feel like for the most part, the characters are very flat. And Dungeon Crawler Carl brings a lot of complexity to the characters, where I'm like, I want to know more about this person. Like we were talking before the podcast, where we meet Katya. And at first you meet her and she's like this girl that the paladin lady, the Valkyrie lady, is like, Hecla, thank you. Yeah, she's like, "Can you take care of my friend? She kind of fell behind in levels, and like, I need somebody to like just bring her into your party and like try to protect her if you can." And she kind of goes from this character that's like scared of the world to, I can't give too much away about her, but like she goes on to become like a really complex character with like varied feelings on a number of subjects, and like very she becomes very deep. And especially what we see of her in book 4, like book 3 and book 4 are like big Katya books. And so I really appreciate what they did with her. I really appreciate what he did with Mordecai. I think Mordecai is a really complex character that legitimately wants to help Carl and Donut, but also has his own motivations, like his whole like I was about to retire thing, and he's like trying to get back to normal life, just like everybody else is. Like he's trying to end his
Yeah,
service to
dude. Yeah.
the crawl, yeah. And so he's very much, oops, he's very much got his own motivations, but at the same time he's growing this fondness for the crew that they've built, and you really see that grow over the next books, like three and four. um, so when I started the book initially, matter of fact, I think I even posted something on Twitter, and I was only like 2 hours in or something, and I had posted something saying, I don't know why everybody's going crazy about this book. How is it any different than any other lit RPG book? I'm like, the humor is cringe. Like, I don't like the game stuff. And I kind of went on like a little like mini rant. And I was like, I just don't see what everybody else is seeing in this. And then when I got to the point where they go on Audette's show for the first time, and
Mhm.
you get to see like, oh, there's like sponsors and there's like these people that like when they get more viewers, like good things happen. And that reminded me a lot of Hunger Games. And there's a lot of like Hunger Games type references in these books. Um, and it reminded me of so many other things that aren't just lit RPG that got me really excited and really invested. And by the time I finished the first book, I was like, I have to read the second book. Like, I have to go on to the
Mhm.
second book.
Yeah.
And then when I finished the second book, I was like, I have to read the third book, and went
Yeah.
on to the third. And then, man, I finished the third and went straight on to the fourth. And I was like, I, I am like so hooked, and I'm just like so over the moon about this series. I'm gonna make a video where I go through like all of my thoughts on it. But as far as our general thoughts go, like I am just over the moon about this series. I would absolutely get like a Dungeon Crawler Carl tattoo, just like a "You will not break me" or like "God damn it, Donut" or something. Like I would love to get something like that on my arm, or just like a tattoo of like Mongo or something. Like I I'm absolutely in love with these characters. I love the story that they've built so far. I love the world building. I think it's super, super interesting because it's not as simple as aliens just coming down and pulling everybody into this dungeon for no reason. There's like tons of details around there that really fill out the world, and it makes me feel like just so excited to keep going with the series. And then I was telling Gabe the other day, or maybe yesterday or whatever, and I was like, I'm actually like paying attention to the statistics, like the items that they get. It's like
Mhm.
+5 to stamina. Like I'm not like tracking like where all his stats are at or anything, but I'm like anytime something comes up, I like rewind and I'm like, wait, what did that glove do? Or wait, what
Mhm.
did that weapon do? And like I'm paying attention to all of these, which is not something that I ever did before. Um, and
Interesting.
yeah, and it's just made me get so into it. And then I was also telling Gabe last week, because we were gonna do a He Who Fights with Monsters episode, and I think I'd gotten through the second book at that point, and I had read the last little bit of book two of He Who Fights with Monsters that I need to read. And I texted Gabe and I'm like, I think that Dungeon Crawler Carl has made me appreciate He Who Fights with Monsters even more. And when I was rereading that bit of He Who Fights with Monsters, I was like kind of paying attention to these things. I was like, okay, so wait, what did that new spell that he got do? Like, what does that do? And like kind of paying attention to all this stuff. And so I think that Dungeon Crawler Carl is the perfect entry point into lit RPG. If anyone's been on the fence about it, because if it can get me on board, that is a Herculean effort.
I think
So
we are all aware of that with you, Spencer.
Yeah.
yeah. Oh
To
my
have
gosh.
all of that just come out of your mouth after you so vehemently said that you
Hmm.
did not like RPG books, you know what I mean? That
Yeah.
that felt good to hear. It felt good to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. It's doing a really, really good job. And I've had to go back on Facebook, or Facebook, Jesus, what am I, 60?
16?
To go back on Twitter. I had to go back on Twitter and be like, "Hey guys, I was wrong." It's just like,
Oh,
"Sorry."
sorry.
I'm loving these books actually. So
I get it.
um
If you had like truly asked me like beforehand, just it's like a video game that you read about, I'd probably be like, you know,
right.
I don't know if I would have been as immediate as you were to be like, no, I don't want to do this. Like, this is not for me. But I was definitely like, like, okay. Like I said, I think you caught me at just the right moment where I was like
Yeah.
looking for something, and it was like, okay, here's something, and it's free. I'm going to try it. But I am so obsessed with these books to the point where I haven't shut the fuck up about them to my husband, to the point
Yes.
where he's like, Sam, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I'm like,
Right. I
it's
know.
it's our world, and they crush everything, and you got to go through levels, and you level up. And I was like, and guess what? It's a reality show. I'm like,
Yes.
it's a reality TV show for the universe. And
I
he's like,
think that's my favorite part about it is that it's not just like some other world that you're transported
yeah,
to. Like it's still on Earth, but it's like a Hunger Games situation
yeah,
where people are like watching you, and depending on how interesting you are, people are going to send you prizes, or maybe they'll fuck with you or whatever.
which,
And
yeah, I mean, having a lot of viewers may not be as beneficial as you initially would think it is. You know what I mean?
right.
Because
Yeah.
now people are watching you. You have to watch what you say.
Mm-hmm.
They can use it against you. They even say to Carl, stop saying out loud the things that you want, because they are not going
They're
to
not going to give it to you. Yeah, they're not going to give you pants.
But just that it's like, how many crawls have there been? And the way that they set it up, where they set Earth up for us to be like the humans here. Like they came down
Yeah.
and fucked with our planet for a bit, and then waited until the time
Mhm.
went out for us to legally like be a safe planet, whatever the
Yeah.
background of it was. And then they're like, oh, well, we're gonna come back and you owe us now. But you find out everybody who's in the game was a crawler essentially, or they're an NPC, and the memories are implanted in them, and they have to keep on a loop doing this
Yes.
over each.
Oh, that's such a good part of it.
It's just, there's so many layers to it, and that was not a pun, being that they like level.
Right. Yeah. No pun intended.
I didn't know what to think with these books, and I definitely didn't expect to be like, this is one of my new favorite series that I've ever read, ever. I've been trying to convince my husband, because we're celebrating our 10-year wedding anniversary
Ooh.
in a week I think away.
Congrats. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we want to go on vacation, because it's been a very long time since we've gone on a vacation that wasn't someone's wedding, you know?
Yeah,
right.
Something like that. It's been a very, very long time. And normally people who know me would say, well, Sam, it's just going to be you and Michael, right? You're not going to bring your son, because they know me. And if I'm going on vacation, I want a break. You know, like
Yeah, right.
But I've actually said to my husband, like, are you sure we shouldn't bring Cooper? Are you sure we shouldn't? Because I want to sit my ass on a beach chair and read and not do anything for a full week straight. He can't do that. He's like,
Right.
we're like, if you ever watch Modern Family, we're like Mitch and Cam, where the one wants to do nothing and the other's like, I want to schedule out every second of every single day with some excursion. And I'm like,
See, that's me. Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah,
if
I'm just like you, Sam. I even told Leah this yesterday. I was like, if it were up to me, my weekends would be just me sitting at my computer. That's all I want to do.
Same.
I don't want to go out. I don't want to go to the store. I don't want to go
Well,
to a concert. I don't want to do anything. Just let me sit here and be quiet.
Yeah. And so I've been trying to say to my husband, like, are you sure we shouldn't bring Cooper? Like, I think he'll, keep you entertained.
Yeah, keep you busy. You guys can go run and do something.
Specifically to what Gabe just said, it's so funny based off of what you just said, is because I had to leave my house today because one of my coworkers' birthday was on Saturday, and we do an office thing, so we're doing it tomorrow. And the last person who was the birthday manager left, and I got pushed into this role. So I've been not only in charge of cards, but like the cakes and stuff.
Mhm.
And she's gluten-free like me. So I had to drive all the way, like 40 minutes away today, to pick up the gluten-free stuff. And on the way back, I'm like, I'm going to grab the birthday card so I don't have to go in the morning. The birthday card says, to get this card for you, I had to leave the house and interact with other humans. You're one of the few people who's worth all of that.
wow, that's funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm like,
I don't want to leave my house.
yeah. So my weekends are very much like that. Where like on my weekend I want to be at home and I just want to be playing video games or whatever. But if I go on vacation, if I'm paying like thousands of dollars to be there, I'm like, no, I'm gonna go do all this shit. Like I'm gonna go. That's funny. So there
beach chair.
Yeah, for sure. That's fair. There's two things I want to talk about real quick. Real quick, I'll say, Dungeon Crawler Carl, I would not be surprised in the least if it is in my top 5 or even my top 3 for the year. And that'll probably be alongside the next Empire of the Vampire book. It'll probably be alongside Will of the Many sequel. Yeah. But yeah, so far, I like I like really, really love these books, and it is surprising to no one more than it is to me. Um, and I would even say there's a lot of like Dresden Files comparisons. Like a lot of the like humor is very similar to Dresden Files in some ways. Like it's just like that quick, like zippy one-liner humor is very similar. And then the other one is the audiobook. Now, Sam, have you heard the audiobook yet?
Yeah, I've got the audiobook for every single book so far. I really like resonated with what you said, where at some points of the book though, it's just like where you said you were busy at work, so you couldn't like go back to like re-listen, where there were parts where I was like, okay, I have to turn the audiobook off and read it. Like I spent
Okay.
a good 8 hours yesterday playing video games on my TV and listening to one of the Dungeon Crawler Carl books.
Nice.
And it worked for me. I had to turn it down to a very, very low speed of 1.4, which was
Right.
very slow, but it allowed me to do the two things at once without losing anything. But there were parts where I was like, all right, I gotta pause this and come back to it because I can't listen to this. I have to physically read the
Yeah.
words.
Well, I'm glad that you're at least trying them because I'm like I don't know, like I'm sure I would still love the book if I read it on paper,
Mhm.
but at the same time, I'm like the audiobook adds so much.
Well,
Like
the
the
audiobook
AI voice alone, you need the AI voice in your head.
Yeah, well, the audiobook gave me the voices, so now when I
Yeah,
read them, I hear
exactly.
those voices in my head, so it's at least helped in that way.
Right, exactly. That's kind of what I was hoping for. And
Uh-huh.
then Sam, as you get into especially books 3 and 4, um, there's literally content that is after the epilogue in the audiobook. So make sure when you're going through the audiobooks, at least like listen to the epilogue, and then there's like another thing after it that gives you stuff about the world and is like a little, I don't know how to describe it. It's
I
like
don't know, it's almost like a glossary, maybe.
no,
Like
no, no, no. It's like an actual like part of the story. Like it's actually like an epilogue to the epilogue.
I
Um,
listened to the end credits that came after the epilogue. Would that have been it?
yeah, but I think it really started picking up in book 3. So if you haven't listened all the way through book 3 in the audiobook, then I would recommend going back and checking that out because
I
there's
can't remember.
actually there's like legitimate content that's in there. Um, And then the last thing that I wanted to say is Gabe, there's so many game comparisons that you could make to Dungeon Crawler Carl, like various just like video games of all sorts. Um, but did you either like consciously or unconsciously pick up on almost the Borderlands like nature of them, where they're like constantly getting loot and you're so excited to see what the next piece of loot is and it adds to like their class and their like did you get that same vibe? Because like as he's picking up loot, I kept thinking about like I'm getting excited for Carl's loot in the same way that I was when I played Borderlands and like, oh, what's this gun do? And like that like search for the better item. Like, did you feel that at all?
Yeah. Welcome to the world of RPG. That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
You
Like,
just put the nail on the head. That's why I love these books.
yeah. And it made me, yeah, I don't know. And even like the humor and stuff just reminded me a lot of Borderlands in a good way. And then when they're like making their builds and he's like, "Oh, well this will go really good with this and this will go really good with this." It reminded me of Remnant. And so I was wondering, I'm like, maybe that's why Gabe is playing so much Remnant lately.
No, I don't know what happened with Remnant. It's pretty wild though.
Yeah.
Um, I haven't really stopped playing that at all. But yeah, no, I mean, I of course I noticed it. It's the loot's
Yeah.
awesome. Like that's part of the reason why I started reading lit RPG because maybe some might have it less or in different ways, but every
Sure.
single one, there's loot and there's building to a class and there's synergies with items and stuff like that.
Right.
I think it made me like understand video games a little bit better.
Right?
sense of, because I've been playing Horizon Zero Dawn a lot.
Oh yes,
Yes.
Which I
So
love.
good.
And, I understood like the basic concept of like, okay, well, I really want to up this, ability over this one because I utilize this one more than this. But it definitely fully made me understand on a different level than I ever had before. And them opening their loot boxes, every time I'm reading, I'm like, when are they going to get to a safe room?
Right. Yes. I know. It's like, open your loot boxes. We got about an hour left. Let's talk about some specific book moments. We won't go through all of these, but we need to talk about two characters specifically. One being Mordecai and one being the AI. And I'd love to start with the AI first because I think this is one of the most interesting things about the series. The AI very much has its own kind of agenda, and it has like it kind of controls everything that happens in the dungeon. And it controls like the loot that you get and stuff. It also has like a foot fetish. And so
I
it's
was gonna say he's
obsessed.
also a pervert.
Yeah, he's a total pervert, and he's obsessed with, or she, or whatever the AI is obsessed with Carl.
And him stepping
And
on things.
yeah, and there's moments where he's like, he like talks in his like sultry voice, like where he's like, yeah, step on that rodent. Like he's just like so obsessed with Carl like killing things with his feet. And so he keeps like sending him items that involve Carl being barefoot to keep him barefoot as long as possible and to keep him like pantsless as long as possible.
It was so
And
funny when Donut says the thing where he can't put anything on over his crotch area of the
yeah,
boxes because it's enhanced. In my head, I went, "Oh, well, they should get him chaps because it wouldn't cover the crotch area." And then
and then she says it.
That says it.
Yep.
I was dying.
Oh my god.
I love Donut clearly by my tag on the bottom. I'm a
Yep.
donut hole, and I prefer to be called a donut hole. I don't like the other names they've come up with. I think donut holes is the best
donut hole
you could come up with ever.
Oh my god. I hate cats. Like I hate cats like more than anyone has ever hated cats. And so Donut, like I love Donut as a character, but I also like hate cats. So it's like it's like a love and hate relationship for me. My favorite character is Mongo. I think Mongo is the best boy. He is so amazing, and I think it's so funny that Donut loves Mongo,
That's her
which is
Yeah,
it's like
her pet,
it's her child, but she also like hates dogs, and Mongo is totally a dog. Like Mongo is a dog.
He's a pet. He's a
Yeah.
pet.
Yeah, he's a pet.
Literally a pet.
Velociraptor dog.
But he's like all his characteristics are those of dogs. Like Carl even like talks about Mongo, like he like wakes up one morning and Mongo is like draped across his
Mongo.
legs. And I'm like, that's such a dog thing. And I love when Mongo like Donut gets the Clockwork Mongo spell where she can make like 3 of him. And when it first happens, like Mongo's all excited and like all 3 of them are like jumping around like, oh my god, we have friends. And then the spell ends and the other 2 turn into ash, and it says that he like goes over to the pile and like sniffs it and like squawks and like looks at Carl with concern like, what just happened to my friends? Like, oh dude, he's so funny and so entertaining at every single turn. And I literally think he might be my favorite animal companion that I've read in fantasy. I love everything about him. Next to like Mouse and Dresden Files, I guess. But yeah, I think he's definitely like one of my all-time favorite animal companions. I love Mongo so much.
Yeah, it's interesting the way they utilize the different skills that they get because
Yes.
there's certain instances where I'm like, wow, I wouldn't have thought to like combine them or to do this skill first and then cast my
Right.
skill against it. You know, when Donut is able to make the dead rise, and then she casts the triplicate, the clockwork
Yes.
on them, and I'm like, mind blown.
It's so cool.
Mind blown. Would have never. I would have died on, if not level 1, level 2 for sure. Like it would have
Right.
just been game over for me. I would have been the guy in the Desperado Club if I had gotten one of those fancy badges, you know, sitting at the bar being like, "This is it." Like,
Right. Yep. We're gonna go down with the level.
And then they can't even give it to the people in later levels. They're like, no, guess what? You're all going to be kicked out of your safe spaces. Like, with like
Right.
$6 left. And it's like, you can't even give people who are like, no, I'm done. Like, this is it. Let me like just go out drunk at least. Like,
Right.
no.
Yep. Well, with that, with the Desperado Club, let's talk about Mordecai. This is a really great character that I'm glad they had that Matt Dinniman had introduced, because I think that, you know, I don't really know how to compare it to other lit RPG that I have read, but I really like having Mordecai as, you know, there's a thing in writing called the idiot rule. And what that means is that you have one character who is the idiot, and then the other person who is, you know, smart or is like well versed in whatever the situation is. And the idiot is able to ask questions to the expert so that the reader can understand the world and can understand the thing. And so it's a pretty common tactic used by authors. And in this situation, Mordecai is the expert, and like Carl and all of the others are kind of the idiot playing their part in the idiot rule. And so I really like having Mordecai there who can kind of like answer lore questions or can tell them more about the game. And it doesn't feel, you know, it doesn't feel super contrived. Like it works really well together. And I really like when Mordecai becomes their team manager and is able to be with them like all the time. And so you kind of have that constant source of information that you can always go back to. And I think that it was just a really brilliant move by Matt Dinniman. You know, he had to find a way to have like a constant source of information because Carl and Donut don't know what's going on. And he was able to do that in a way that felt really natural. So what do you guys think of Mordecai?
That went over my head. I would have never guessed that that was the author's way of giving us information we wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So props to Spence for that, because that's how good it was that I didn't even realize he'd put
exactly
in place for that reason. So that's what I just writing down really quickly because I didn't want to forget.
Yeah.
I didn't even guess that. So wow.
Yeah, that's why Mordecai is there, is to kind of inform the reader on the various rules of the game. And when Carl gets to like a new area and he's like, hey, so like what's going on here? Mordecai is able to be like, well, this race doesn't interact with this race very well. They're kind of enemies, but they do get along with this one, and kind of explain all of that lore. And that's very helpful for the reader. What's going to be interesting is if Carl gets to the 13th floor and Mordecai hasn't been up that far yet, or the 14th or whatever. And, you know, because Mordecai gets to a certain point in his run, and then he makes a deal with them to become this guild master. And so I'm curious to see what happens when they get up to another, you know, whatever the next level is, and Mordecai being like, I really don't know. I haven't been here yet. And he can help them make assumptions and, you know, strategize and stuff. But I'm really curious to see what happens at that point.
What about you, Gabe? You have so much more experience with these types of books than we do.
Yeah, I think I mean Spencer basically said it. It's a great way to, you know, kind of keep you informed in ways that aren't being like, you know, you're dumb, so I need to tell you what's going on.
Right.
But yeah, I like Mordecai a lot. I think the whole manager thing was a really cool move because at first, he was just a guide,
Mm-hmm.
A
kind of
drunk
with
guide.
a drunk guide
Yeah.
with set rules that he kind of had to, you know, rules put in place by Borant or the AI or
Yeah.
whatever else.
That
And
he
then
had
when
to
he
work
got
within.
yeah, and then when they kind of tricked him into becoming the manager, that like it almost kind of made him like a crawler in some aspects, right?
Right.
Which is really cool. So he's got a lot more uh, freedom to help. He can give more information.
He
He's
can
not
make
as
potions.
make potions. Yep, he's an alchemist, so he can help out in a lot of ways. And so that was like a big avenue that was opened up
Well,
compared
it
to
makes you
just
think of like that you find out kind of later that they really lucked out getting Mordecai
oh
because
yeah, for sure. Yep,
I didn't.
that's what what's her name? Audit or
Yeah,
Audette? Yeah.
Audette, yeah.
Yeah, that's what she was the one that basically said, "Listen, you need to get him. You
Yeah.
need to trap this guy into being your manager because he's a genius and he has a lot of information." And so I'm glad that worked out. And yeah, I don't think he's figured out right that they kind of knew what was happening because
Yeah. I'm curious to see what happens if he ever finds out, because the book specifically said, and I hope that this was said for a reason, is that if he ever found out that they knew ahead of time what the manager perk was, he would be really upset that they tricked him in
yeah,
that way.
well,
yeah,
especially it coming from Odette because
Yeah.
there's some lore background with the two of them because she was his manager,
yeah,
his person, and clearly something bad happens to
Right.
sour their relationship.
yeah.
I think it has to do with his brother. I
It
think she
definitely does.
I think she like pushed him into a battle that he was like not wanting to go into, and it got his brother killed.
Yeah, something like that. Absolutely. But I mean, it reminds me a lot of one of the first things Odette says to Carl after an interview is like, don't trust anyone when you don't know their
Mm-hmm.
motivations.
Yeah.
And even though she's the one telling him this, Carl constantly has to remind himself, like, okay, her advice does seem really great, but I also need to question like why she's giving
Yep.
me
Right.
this advice. It's kind of
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
doubling up
Everybody
almost.
has their own intentions. Like any entity or like level of administration that you find, like they've all got their own kind of greedy wants that they're going to try and make happen. Like
Well,
every
we
person's, like
yeah,
I'm
for
sure
sure.
Claudette wants to, work things her way, and then Mordecai needs stuff to go his way, and the AI's probably got his own thing against Borant, and Borant wants it to go this way. So like there's a
Yeah.
lot of challenging narratives.
Because no major spirals or no major spoilers, but we do see the AI kind of start to spiral in the next couple
No.
books and like maybe work against Borant a little bit. So that's a really interesting theory that we don't have all the information for yet, but I'm like, oh, I want to know so much more about the AI. And my theory, after it's not really much of a theory, but after rereading the first couple books, is they mention, I wish I had written it down, but there's some connection between the primal race that Carl chooses and the AI. Somehow those two things are linked. And so I almost wonder if the AI is a primal or something.
Because
Um,
they can mask, right? As
yeah,
essentially nobody knows what a primal actually looks like.
right. Yeah,
But to add to that, I also find it very interesting that so many of the people in the crawl are people who like gave up on their crawls, but said like, okay, I know I'm not going to make it further, so I'm going to take whatever out this corporation is offering me, which
right.
essentially means I'm going to be in indentured servitude to
Yep,
thousands and thousands and thousands of crawls after this.
right.
And so those people who are not NPCs and are in the crawl but not crawling, do have their own motivations,
Yep.
which we don't know.
Yeah. It's super, super curious. And honestly, I think Odette's motivations are mostly just her show. I would be really surprised if she had some like master plan or something.
You don't think it's
I
guilt? I think it's guilt.
Ooh, it could be guilt. Um, but it could also just be like she wants to keep Carl and Donut alive as long as possible because it's good for her show. Um, but yeah, it could be Gil. I would love to explore the relationship between her and Mordecai further in future books and find out what's going on there.
I can't remember. Can you remind me where I heavily listened to book 3 and I'm not spoiling anything with
Uh-huh.
this. Mordecai has this like southern accent. Is that
Yeah.
how it was through all of the books or was it just
No, it changes.
okay?
It changes every time he switches forms.
I couldn't remember.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's been super interesting. Every time every level he like changes forms, and it's always a new voice kind of.
Yeah, they give him that really like southern accent, but apparently he's like drop dead gorgeous, you know.
Yeah, he's like a suck or incubus.
Succubus,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
And I was like, I
he
would like to see that. I
right. Yeah,
really want them to make these books into an animated series. I'm not looking
me
for
too. I'm like, and it's in the works. They have like a movie or
really.
a show that's in the works. Yeah. So it got picked up, I think for a TV series is what it got picked up for.
I
And
think
so
it should be animated. I really think it should be
it
animated.
has to be animated, yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, there's been a lot of cool stuff like that. And then there's another company called Sound Booth, which is I think Jeff Hayes's company. And they do almost like a graphic audio thing where there's like a big cast that does all the voices and there's
Mhm.
like sound effects and stuff. So I want to check that out as well. Um, but Mordecai has,
I want to get the physical books. I looked them
yeah,
up.
me
They're
too.
only like hardcover, unfortunately, for each one. And if they had been if they had been like illustrated, I would have bought them in 2 seconds, but they're not
Mm,
illustrated. So I didn't because I was like, I'm reading them for free. I'm not going to spend this money right now. But if
yeah,
they were illustrated, man, I would buy those in a second.
interesting. Yeah, I like illustrated. I don't necessarily require it. They do have special editions that have like sprayed edges and stuff. That I've been
I
thinking about
can't
buying.
like form pictures in my own head. I need a reference first, and then I can visualize the reference. So with these
Oh
books,
man.
just give me those references.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was looking up art for the thumbnail for this and for like our background and stuff, and there's just not a lot of it. There's
Whoa.
not a lot out there, which kind of sucks.
It's just surprising with that, I don't know how I would have ever stumbled across this on my own in general, but the fact that there was already 7 books out, and
Right?
I didn't realize book 7 just came out in February. Like it is a
Yep.
very recent book that book 7 came out. I had assumed kind of the whole series was done. I didn't realize it was something that was going to go on for as long either. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, at least he's putting them out at a rate that I'm not like, oh man, like, are we
Right.
gonna get the next book?
Yeah. And, starting at book 4, the books get like really long. So I think he said book 7 is like a 30 something hour audiobook. So they get to be like big books, which is really nice because sometimes I hate that. And then other times I'm like, yes, give me more. And so
Yeah.
I love that they get longer.
Well, and were you a little worried when they talk about how the Borant Corporation is the one who's running this crawl, and there are different corporations who run each crawl, and they can pick. There's not everybody does this level crawl. There's a fight to the death. There's these other things. Shit, when you have like a really great like thought process going, and it just
It
freaking.
just dies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
happens to me all the time.
Yeah.
But my old boy was with like Boran, and they supposedly have this thing going on with Valte.
Yep.
And they're the ones who Boran's about to go bankrupt. Oh, now I remember. Boran's
Yep.
about to go bankrupt. Valte is like circling them in the solar system, ready to
Yep.
like hack them. And
Right.
so they're making the levels go faster than apparently they normally would. And that really freaked me out in the beginning because I'm like, oh, are they going to like speed run through all of this? Like, I don't want it to keep getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And thankfully, it seems that that's now slowed down. It's not going to be that way, but it adds a whole nother interesting layer to the crawl.
Yeah, I think that it's more of like a storytelling device than actually trying to speed up the books. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. I love all of the outside influence type stuff that's going on. And I think that so far it's all been really, really intriguing. And I really like learning about all these different like companies or civilizations or races or whatever that are all kind of they're all like working together, kind of like on board for this crawl, but they're also like very antagonistic towards each other. And so I love how all of that kind of gets built.
Can I ask you guys a question that I'm just dying to talk about? Because I'm so nervous and I don't think anybody's been read to the part, so I don't think it would be, I think we can all discuss it just with like we don't know. The second Donut put that tiara on, when Mordecai had just said, do not put anything on without reading the description first. Do not put any piece of clothing on. And she puts the tiara on. And you find out that she's now a part of the royal family. And to make it past, I think it's level 9.
Yeah.
She's going to have to kill every other blood member of the Sultanate family.
Yeah.
I just need to know your guys' thoughts on this because it has been a constant in the back of my mind throughout every book. I'm like, but when they get to this level, like Donut cannot go past until she kills all of these people, regardless of if she retains the tiara or not. Like she has to now do it. What are your thoughts?
Well, so I might have to edit this out if it's not a book 2 thing, but doesn't she lose the tiara?
Yes, but it's a fleeting thing. So regardless, it's once you take it off, it's no longer yours. It's going to go to somebody else, but you are still upheld to the rules of when you put it on.
Oh,
part of
I didn't
the
know
terms.
that.
That's
okay.
Yeah,
that's the one thing she put on without reading the description, and Carl and both Mordecai were like, "God damn it, Donut!"
Yeah, Donut pisses me off so often. I think she's
the beginning, but she kind of makes sense the longer
she gets awesome further.
Yeah, she does.
In.
She does.
I mean, but it is just in the back of my mind the whole time, especially with, say they make it all the way to like the final level, only one person can win, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think that Carl and Donut could win.
Yeah, because she's considered
a crawler now. She's not considered a pet anymore.
Right.
She is a crawler, an independent crawler, which is why Hekla wanted her so badly.
So based on some interviews that I've listened to and stuff of just like Matt Dinniman like being kind of sly with how he talks about the end of the series. My theory is that they don't finish the crawl. My theory is that they somehow break out of the dungeon crawl and it
Hunger Games.
Yeah, and it kind of moves into the real world and Carl and Donut and probably Katya take on either the Borant Corp or the whatever the orcs are or whatever. I think they take the fight outside of the dungeon crawl because I think that I think the level by level dungeon crawl can only work for so long. I think at some point it gets tired. And so I think there's a point in the series where they must have to shake things up and get the real world more involved. So that's kind of my theory is that, but there's so much they've been talking about level 9 so much that I would be shocked if we didn't at least see level 9 in the series. So yeah, I really don't know I don't know. But we do know that Carl will never leave Donut. Like he's had multiple opportunities to leave Donut behind, and we've seen him like as much as he talks crap about her, like he loves her so much. She even mentioned there's this moment that was so good. I think it's in book one
One, yeah.
where she's like, I saw you on the computer and like you were, even though you had been saying that you were going to get rid of me and send me to Beatrice's parents or whatever, like you were looking at apartments that accepted pets.
He was gonna steal her. She's like,
Yeah.
"You're gonna take me." Oh my god, it was
Yeah.
so sweet.
I know. There's been so
More
many
and more
moments
of
like
it.
that.
Yeah, as it goes along. And usually in a book, it really pisses me off when anyone puts like the group over themselves, where it's like, come on, like, no, like, only one can survive in the end anyway. Like, worry about your party.
Right.
I think these books found a really great balance of like, listen, I can still help myself and help others at the same time and not fully throwing myself on the
Right.
tracks and the train to save these people, but doing what I can. And if they take it or leave it, whatever, figure it out. Like, it is what it is. And these
Yeah.
books have such a great balance with that.
Well, there's a moment in I think it might be early on in book two or whatever. But you know, Donut is about to like sacrifice herself to take care of Mongo because he's getting hit, and then Carl has to like jump in front of her and like protect her while she protects Mongo. And he gets mad at her afterwards, and he's like, "We don't sacrifice ourselves for our pets, Donut. Like we don't do that." And she has like this hurt look on her face, and he like instantly regrets it. And then when the battle is all over and they're kind of walking back to the safe room, he's like, "All right, well, let's take on the next thing, partner." And she's like, "Okay, partner." And it's just like this great moment where he's like he never like says I'm sorry, but it's like I clearly did not mean that, and I think of you as more than a pet. Like you are like my person. Like yeah, I love.
Pat, I was willing to steal you and risk a felony conviction, and
Uh,
sentient. We're a team. We're together.
right.
In this.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
So good.
There's a quote early on that I thought was super funny where it's like when they first get into the dungeon and he says, "I go this way and you go that way. I get it. Cats are assholes, but we put up with you because he's like, but we put up with you because you can't fucking talk. And if you could, you'd all be fucking extinct." And I just love that so much.
Oh, it's so great.
Oh, so good. There's one quote that we missed before we move on too far. There's a quote from Mordecai that I thought is really foreshadowing. And I actually have a big problem with the foreshadowing in these books. We'll talk about that later. But Mordecai says, "Remember, it's not worth it, no matter what they tell you, not until after floor 12. And even then, negotiate as much as you can." What does this mean?
I think they offer you at the end of each floor when you get to the higher ones. Okay, do you want to opt out? We'll let
Right.
you live off 1,000,000 years as a guide,
Yeah.
manager, whatever. And it's Mordecai's way of saying without saying, like, yeah, I wish I hadn't,
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
What about
What do
you, Kate?
we Yeah, what
Yeah,
do
no,
you have any
I
thoughts?
didn't even really think about that. Maybe I didn't catch the quote, but I think that makes sense, Sam. I think that's
Yeah.
I think that totally makes sense.
I think Mordecai regrets a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I think with him like drinking so much, I think there's a lot in that history of him, maybe making decisions that he wished he could take back.
Yeah.
What is up with Agatha? Do you guys have any theories as to who Agatha is?
No theories, but she's my favorite whenever she pops up.
Yeah.
She's just out there cruising with her cart. You know, nobody knows how she's still alive, but she's just doing it.
She's a
Well,
plant. She's a plant. She's absolutely a Valte plant. And I don't know
she's
how they
got to be
did
a
it.
plant.
I don't know how they did it, but after Carl accidentally, had taken her shopping cart in, and then when he gave it
Yeah.
back to her, he was able to see like what he had once owned that was hers, and it was like bombs and crazy, crazy stuff that was
Really
illegal.
weird tech. Yeah.
Yeah, like they weren't allowed to have. And she's definitely like a Valte plant. And
Yeah.
then once Carl finds out that that's who's its sponsor, I'm like, oh, it's all making sense.
Right.
It's all making sense.
And she even says, because he's like, what? He's like, how are you surviving? Like, how are you getting away from all the like mobs and stuff? And she's like, oh, they know I'm here. They just don't know what to do about me. It's like, what does that mean? Like, what? So yeah, I'm super interested to see what happens with Agatha. Mordecai drops a really interesting like theory crafting quote. He says, in book 1, he says, "There are no gods here, just those who pay for the privilege." And so I'm thinking that these are people like third parties that pay a certain amount of money to be like a godlike figure in the game.
Yeah.
I think that's what that means.
Yeah, I definitely think it's like a live interactive. While there are a lot of NPCs, there are people who pay to play. And I'm definitely really interested to find out more about that for sure.
Yeah. We have a few great quotes here. One Gabe and I were talking about earlier is when the old guy pees on the wall, and they've told everybody not to like pee inside, but to like go to the bathrooms, and they send the rage elemental or whatever after them. Yeah. And the AI says, "You are absolutely bite the pillow fucked." That had me laughing out loud. I'm like, I've got to use that in everyday life. Like, God, I am bite the pillow fucked.
It's a good one, man.
Yeah, I love that. And then another favorite of mine and Gabe's, I'd sent him this quote and he hadn't like quite gotten there, and then he texted me when he heard the quote, and he's like, "Oh my God, this is the funniest thing I've ever heard." Is when the AI, like Carl picks up loot and it says like mana toast, and the AI says, "It's mana toast. It's toast and it refills your mana. That's it. Fuck you." That had me dying. I was laughing so hard at that.
Yeah. Like anytime they finish something and they're like, "No, your reward is surviving."
Yeah, I love it whenever they don't get a reward. Like there's one about Steve Irwin where it's like, "You did this thing. The ghost of Steve Irwin smiles upon you. Reward? I said the ghost of Steve Irwin smiles upon you." I love the AI so much. He's so good.
And it's so interesting because, you very much have this feel from the beginning that something's going on with the people hosting this, and that this is not normal. This is not how things are normally run.
Right.
But the AI is set up to even the playing field. And
right.
AI is at odds with Boran.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's another, I can't remember, I think it's in book 2. It might be like at the very end of book 2. And I forget what the item is, but Carl gets an item that enhances his like stomp ability, like his feet ability.
The manicure kit.
Yeah, it's either that, it's either that or it's something that like forces him to use bare feet instead of getting boots or something.
Yeah, no, it was the pedicure kit.
Yeah. And the AI is like explaining it, and he's like, "Oh, so you'll have to like keep your feet bare or whatever." And he goes, "Why?" There's like a pause. He's like, "You know why." And it's like I fucking love it. I love it so much.
And he has to get Imani to like show him how to use
how to use it.
Because Donut's like, I don't fucking know. Like,
right. Oh my god, it's so funny. It's so funny. Um, and then there's a great Carl and Donut quote where she says, I forget what's happening, but she says, "I don't want to puke." And Carl says, "That's funny. I seem to remember you having a thing for vomiting on my pillow." And Donut says, "That was different. That was on purpose." And Carl says, "I knew it. I fucking knew it."
Yeah, because I think she like vomits on his shoulder, like
Yeah.
brawl. He's like, I fucking knew it.
Yep. Yep. We get the Maestros show. This is like the prince of I forget what company. It starts with an S. They're like the
Skull
Right?
something.
yeah. They're like orcs or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's got this whole Death Watch show, and it's like it's almost like a Twitch stream. Like the audience is like 13-year-old boys
Yep.
that are just like watching like this for like action and stuff. And they have this phrase that they use called glurp glurp. And I love the audiobook. Just like it's just the most disgusting sound, like glurp glurp. Oh my god, it's so good. And then I love when Carl even addresses the audience and he's like, "What do we say?" And they all say glurp glurp.
Yep.
It's so fun. But then he's got like this AI like sex tape that gets released. And people start calling the maestro Carl's naughty little piggy.
Oh my god.
It's so funny. All of the humor is so over the top, and I think I was worried going into the book because so many people talked about the humor, and typically whenever I hear that a book is like satire or like parody or anything, I'm kind of like, not my thing. Like I'm not into like the like funny books. But I think the comedy in this works so well with everything else that is going on. Like it's not like it is ridiculous, but not to the point where I'm like, I feel like we've completely lost the plot. Like it, all of it works so well in synchronicity. And I love just Carl's sex tape. It's so funny.
And then they like finally see him naked and they're like, all right, we know that it was like a fake. Like
right,
was,
yeah. We know it's a fake now. Yeah. Yeah.
But it
yeah.
was such a good AI generated video that no one was sure.
Yeah, they weren't sure, yeah. We learn that there is a consistent quest line that persists through the 3rd, 6th, 9th, 12th, and 15th floors. Every 3 levels, there is a consistent quest line that goes through all of them, which I thought was pretty interesting. And we start to see that in the second book with the elite, the
what's her name? Who gets? I can't say that. That might be later in another book.
Signet.
Who was I thinking of? I think it was.
You were thinking of Zev. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Signet is the elite that makes him kill the circus bear.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the one with like the brain?
Yeah, it has like a parasite.
The worms, yeah.
Yeah, the circus one. one. Yeah.
Yep. And he even like gets on the phone with the people that are running the show and he's like, I will sign a deal with you to participate in these quests every 3 levels if you keep me alive right here. Which I think was a super dumb move, but we'll see how that plays out. So then Carl gives just another what's her name quote, donut quote, where he gives this dingo a pet biscuit, and Donut's whole thing is like typing in all caps in the private chat, and she just says, "This is the betrayal most foul." Funny.
And you think she's gonna stop doing it at one point because she does?
Yeah.
I think like one single
she
time.
Just like one time.
You wouldn't know this unless you were physically reading it. Really.
Right.
And Carl kind of says, I think he says like, "Oh my god, that's what it was." Good Donut didn't type in caps, but like,
right.
Even physically reading it, I didn't like catch it, and then I was like, "Oh, Yeah, she didn't type in caps for that one, but then never again. Ever
Right.
still going forward is all in caps.
That's so funny.
In the book, it's just always her screaming, like
Screaming.
top of her lungs.
Yeah.
Whenever they
And
chat.
her little accent is just so amazing. It's like English, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very British.
Very prim and proper.
Very,
Yeah.
yeah, very like princess, like, at the end of the first book, the final boss battle is like this mole rat, and Carl is, of course, like barefoot, and Donut says to him, as Miss Beatrice would say, it's time to pay the daddy tax. And he's like, in what situation would she ever say that? And the battle goes on. She's like, well, she was talking about you, like you're the daddy. And he's like, oh my God. And then the mole rat's on the ground, and he kind of like looks up at the sky, and he goes, time to pay the daddy tax, and like steps on it with his foot, and the whole dungeon like moans, and there's like this earthquake. That had me laughing out loud so hard. Time to pay the daddy tax. And I'm just like, oh my God. Why do I know exactly what that means? Like, Sam knows what the daddy tax is.
Yeah, I mean,
I can tell by your face.
just really funny throughout like the books. At first, you think like Donut is like oblivious to everything, and then you slowly find out that no, she is aware of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything. So yeah, when the daddy text came up, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
shh. Don't talk about the daddy text,
We
okay?
don't talk about the daddy.
You just don't talk about that. Just shh.
Keep it quiet, Donut. Oh, it's so funny. It's so funny. Yeah, we talked about the Valtech Corp. They're technologically advanced. They're like a parasitic type people. And then we see them send Carl stuff multiple times throughout books 3 and 4. And Carl kind of wonders if Agatha is one of them. In the midst of all this, we get Mongo, which is great. We've talked about Mongo, but I just love him so much. And I love when they first get him, and he's like this ugly duckling, and Donut is just like, we have to get him. And he just becomes like the best character. I love him so much.
He's awesome.
You're like, what is Donut talking about? Like, stop. Do not like concede. Like, do not get in, because like this is Donut's current fascination. And then you're like, oh, I think this actually worked out really well.
Yep. Okay, so that wraps up book 1. Let's talk about book 2, titled is it, I can't remember if it's Dungeon Crawler Carl or if it's just Carl's Doomsday Scenario.
It's Carl's Doomsday Scenario. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So this is where we get them choosing their classes and races. Donut chooses former child actor, which the classes were so funny. I was like, what are these? But I think they're really interesting. Like, I wish more video games did it this way, where you get to a certain level and then you choose your class after you've kind of figured out like how you like to play. And a lot of games nowadays don't even really have classes, but it was cool seeing them just be like a person for a while and then choosing their class, and finding one that is tailored to you. I think that's really cool. And it was also interesting to learn that other players' guide was not as helpful. And Katya's guide sucked and put her into this race and class that were not good for her at all. But they end up making the best out of it. And so it's really, really interesting to see what everybody kind of does with their class and stuff.
It's really the first time you realize that, especially with Katya, that maybe all of the managers / what was Mordecai before he was technically a manager? He was their
Guildmaster.
Guildmaster.
Yeah.
That they may not all have the best intentions with the crawlers that they're supposedly there to help. And that was really eye-opening for me, because I
Right.
was like, wow, was this like luck that they got Mordecai? If
Mm-hmm.
they hadn't, what would have happened if they'd gotten this like terrible Tabitha or whatever her name was? And that was really interesting to me, because I hadn't even gone that far in my thoughts of, what if you have someone who's halfway through their servitude? You know what I mean? And so to them,
Right.
it doesn't really matter how you do. They kind of just want to get through this crawl to get to the next one, to the
Mm-hmm.
next one, till they're at their final one.
Yeah. And Mordecai is at the very end of his, so maybe he wants to like make sure he doesn't mess anything up before he's about to get his retirement or whatever.
I think of it more as, okay, this is my last chance, and maybe I didn't get the best guild
Mm-hmm.
master to help me, and I haven't been that helpful. I've probably been a drunk to most of the people that I've helped, but this is
Right.
my last one. I'm going to try to make it work.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Also during this like beginning part, we learn that primals are the original race and that you can see remnants of their battles all over the galaxy. Nobody knows what they looked like, and it's said that one day they will come back to claim everything. And I have a theory that at the end of the series the primals come back, like all of this like creates enough of a stir that primals come back, and when they do, they recognize Carl as a primal, and that he is like basically taken on, like he's not killed because he is one.
I feel like you just told me, like, remember when we were reading Empire of the Vampire in the second book, and I was like, oh, the white moths. And you guys
Right.
like, oh my God, how did we miss that?
Right.
I am feeling that moment now, where
Yeah.
that makes total fucking sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
need a second to process that, because that is just really rearranged the
How
way I
you
was thinking of things.
Yep.
And wow.
Yep. I'm like I think that's a definite possibility for sure.
Because they change you. It is not like you pick
They
the
actually
same-
change you. Yeah.
Yeah, like they on a physiological level change you, which Katya also struggles with, you know.
Right.
He's one of the few that we follow that changed herself. And she loses a couple fingers at one point, and although she's able to rearrange her body,
It's like never the same.
yeah, she's like, I still feel the loss. That's really interesting, that even though he still looks like Carl, he is a primal.
Yep. He's
Yeah.
something else.
Yep. Super interesting.
Spence, that good one. I'm gonna like literally like ruminate on that for I think a while.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of cool like theory crafting stuff you can do with this series. And one thing I haven't really talked about yet that I was going to talk about in final thoughts, but I don't think we'll have enough time for a final thoughts segment, is that Matt Dinniman has gone into interviews and said that he has not outlined the entire series, that he's kind of making it up as he goes. And I typically do not like series that are done that way. I typically like series that have been like outlined since the beginning. And so I think that there is some foreshadowing that he's put in place because like maybe he knows where he wants things to go. But the only part that like really worries me about the series is that he doesn't have like a full outline or anything. And so I hope that he like stays the course and like keeps making things interesting the way that they have been in these 4 books that we've read. Because I think there's a lot of series that kind of go off the rails around the later books when you don't have like a series outline. So I'm hoping that he sticks with it, and I'm hoping that these theories come into play and these things kind of come back and he addresses them and stuff. And I hope that theory is, maybe it's not correct in that exact way, but I hope that it comes back up and we see more about like the primals and we find out that Carl being a primal is significant.
Yeah, it's like the key to something.
That would
Yeah.
be a great way to tie in any sort of the primals are back. They said they were going to be back and that they're going to take over. And guess what? Carl is a primal.
Yeah, maybe the primals are back and it's Carl.
Yeah.
That's what the prophecy was about.
Yep.
This is the first time I've sat here while we're doing the stream and
taking
written
notes.
things down.
Yeah.
This is the first time, other than the no swearing post that I usually have.
Sure,
here.
yeah.
But wow.
Yeah.
I am this series, I
it's getting good.
Feel this way. I thought I was like, oh, this sounds interesting. I'll like it. I'll hate it. Who cares?
Yeah.
Either way. I did not expect to be like, this is my new obsession.
Right.
To the point where, like I said earlier, my husband is annoyed with me because it's all I want to talk about. He's like, Sam, I don't read these fucking books. I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm
right.
Like,
you're like, it doesn't matter. Just listen to me anyways.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just nod your head and go, oh, interesting. Yeah.
I get in trouble when I don't do that.
Yeah.
You get it. You're a smart man. Okay.
I want to mention in the second book, there's a town that they go to. We start to see like actual like NPCs that have like lives and are like real people, basically. And it reminded me a lot of Westworld, if you guys have seen that, because the Borant Corporation like biologically makes these NPCs and they are there for the player to interact with, which is exactly what Westworld did.
I thought of this a lot as I was reading these. I was like, oh, this Westworld where like the memories have been placed and have all. Can you imagine today, right now, at this moment, we find out we're in a video game, okay? And we are part of, we don't know yet, we're the NPCs. We're here to further someone else's story along.
Right.
Every memory like I've had of my husband, of my son, of my dogs, of my mom, of my dad, everything.
If it was all fake, yeah.
In your head. And they point out that like you can tell these NPCs this. You can tell them that. And they will slowly come to realize, oh.
And then they get like, then it like breaks them, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That is crazy.
Isn't it? It's almost, it is sadder to me than like a Mordecai storyline. Where, all right, well, at least you made this decision to be the guild master over and over again. The NPCs are technically real beings.
Well, Carl even says, he's like, what they're doing to these NPCs is kind of like more fucked up than what they're doing to us.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
I love the scene of Carl putting together the cat tree for Donut, and when he goes to sleep, she like falls asleep at the top of the cat tree because it makes her like feel like home, and Mongo is like sleeping at the bottom of it, and then he wakes up in the morning and Donut is like sprawled across his like chest, and Donut is like and then Mongo is like laying across his legs. And I'm like, oh, I just love these moments where like it's usually after like a big battle or something, and like Donut will just come up and just kind of like nudge him, or will like sit on his shoulder or whatever. I just love these little quiet moments that make us remember that that it's not just like action all the time, that these are like real characters with feelings, and you know, they want to feel like they're at home. Like Carl and his books, he's like, you know, I had all these, I forget what the author is, but like these books that I read, and yeah, it's so good.
Well,
cool, and they like plant those in at the perfect times too.
Yeah, just when you've been like going and going and going and going,
just when
you
you've
get this...
been going to the point where you're like, this is getting like, you know, a little intense, and then you have a quiet moment that kind of fixes it, which is really cool.
Yeah,
because they're supposed to have like, technically they can have their own separate rooms, and Donut's like, no, Carl, we're sleeping together in the same room. Like, what are you talking about? Right.
Oh,
it's just so sweet.
I love it.
I love their relationship so much. And I, like you, Spence, have never been a cat person. It's just, I'm super allergic. I could be 100 yards from a cat and my eyes will be itching and I'll break out in hives. But I do social media management on the side. I build websites. I do social media for businesses. And my current client is a cat cafe here.
Nice.
Oh, God.
And
that is my nightmare.
Listen, it's a close family friend. I love her to death. She always had this dream of opening a cafe where you could also, do with the cats, but they're all up for adoption. It hasn't even been open a year yet, and she's adopted out 120 cats. Like,
wow.
I cannot champion a cause more than this. You know what I mean? But I'm deathly allergic to cats. Okay, I'm not into them. I love dogs, even though I'm allergic to dogs. I put up with it, but I don't know what kind of cats these are. But I've always been really partial to the smush-faced cats, the ones.
Oh yeah, the Persian.
Yeah, whatever Donut is.
She's a Persian cat. Yeah,
it's just always added for me. I'm like, but she's like the really cute. Like she has no nose.
Oh God, I think they're so ugly. I just like. I'm like, I just think cats are like the shittiest animal you could possibly have in your house. Like,
yeah, I say you're wrong. I'll just say that you're wrong.
You're wrong. Wrong. If I had a cat, I would. They're so much easier than dogs. They're so.
Oh God, they hate you though. They hate you.
That's not true.
Every cat.
That's not true.
Not every cat.
Okay, we gotta go. We gotta go through a couple things before we end here because we gotta get out of here pretty soon. So we have a couple great quotes. It's when Carl is talking to I think it's the Naga that is like beautiful or whatever, and is like forcing a sexual desire in him, even though it's not like real. And Donut says to Mordecai, "He has an erection, Mordecai. It's very inappropriate." And Mongo is appalled.
One of the best quotes. One of the best quotes.
It's so funny. Mongo is appalled. And then
not only that, Mordecai's like, break your finger. It's the only thing.
Break your finger. Yeah. And
but
then
you have to do it yourself. Like nobody else can do it for you. You have to break your own finger.
Right.
And Carl just does immediately.
Yeah, he snaps out of it. And then Carl is doing the dead hooker quest. And he's able to like put one of them in his inventory, and he goes up to like the mayor's office or whatever, and like he's like, "Can I leave some evidence with you?" And she's like, "Fine." And he like plops this dead hooker down on the table, and all of her Beanie Babies go sprawling everywhere, which the Beanie Babies come back in a big way in the third book.
Dude, who knew?
Isn't that crazy? Yeah, it's so cool. But he like plops this dead hooker down on the table, and he had like cleared it with the guards first. He had like used his like get out of jail free card and like told them what he was doing. And so like the guards came in and they're just like not doing anything. And I love just like this out of context quote is so funny. Carl says, "They had, in their own odd way, endorsed my ability to have a dead hooker in my inventory."
Yep.
I died when I heard that. I was like, that is just the funniest. The way that sentence is structured is so hilarious. They had, in their own odd way, endorsed my ability to have a dead hooker in my inventory. That killed me. That absolutely killed me.
That's like there was like a Sister Wives quote at some point. I cannot remember which book it was from, but I quoted it. It won't ruin anything regardless of what book it was from. And it's Donut saying to Carl, like, "I just realized you're the only boy here. All these people and there's only one penis. You could start a harem like that guy on Sister Wives." I died.
That's so funny. Okay, so the last thing we'll talk about before we go is, obviously, people who are watching this don't need a recap. There's the whole nuke thing that happens at the end of the book, and that was really, really cool. I really enjoyed that storyline. But the biggest note I have before we end here is that we meet Katya, and this is the lady that Hekla she got a hold of Carl and was like, "Hey, can you please protect my friend and like make sure that she like levels up because she's like falling behind and all this stuff." And she is a doppelganger and a monster truck something enthusiast or something, professional monster truck driver or something like that. And the way that these work is that her being a doppelganger allows her to change her body however she wants. And I think this is the biggest part for me where I'm like, oh man, I can't believe Gabe skipped over to the fourth book. Obviously, you didn't mean to, but you learn so much more about like how she's able to do. There's like a whole magic system that's involved in all of this, and the way that it's utilized in the third book is so genius. It was the first time where I was like, oh my God, I love the magic system. I love how the like builds work and like how they combine all these things to make it work. Because what Carl does to Katya in the third book is genius, especially paired with her class, which says the faster she gets moving, the more constitution she has, meaning the more health she has. And the way that Carl utilizes those two things, it was the moment that like got me really interested in like the statistics and the builds and the classes and all of that. It was the first time it had really like opened my eyes to that. So I'm super excited to see what Gabe thinks when he gets to that part in the third book, because there's a particular battle where she uses the
Mm-hmm.
speed, like the faster she goes, the more constitution she has, and it is by far one of the most insane things that happens in all four of the books. It is
Yeah.
so fucking cool. And it was the moment for me. It was that moment where I was like, I love this. So I'm super, super excited to see what Gabe thinks when he gets there. But I think Katya is such a cool character. She's really come into her own, especially in books 3 and 4. And we just get to see her for a little while before the end of book 2. But she's really a fantastic character. Do you guys have any thoughts on her before we go?
I would just say, like, my whole thing with Katya is like from the beginning, I was like, this is really sketch and suspect with Hecla asking Carl to like take her and level her up. And in my head, I'm like, what? Take her and level her up so that you can then like take her back and use her when she's
Yes.
useful.
Yep.
And that really, really bothered me from the jump. I was like, this is fucking weird. This doesn't make sense. Like,
Yeah.
why was she left behind to begin with? Why is she asking Carl to take her on? So that was when I initially began to suspect Hecla of, obviously, like, everybody's in this game for themselves. You really have to be in most ways. In most ways. But so that's when I really became concerned about Carl's, like, I don't want to say trust, but
Yeah.
willingness to like take people in and help them or help others regardless of what the effects may be to him later on down the road. But I was very grateful for it because I thought she brought a really great new character into the mix. Somebody that there was a purpose. They're trying to level her up. She has an ability that can be leveled up in a way that is something that Carl and Donut cannot do. From the jump, I was like, oh, she would be a great addition to their team. In
Yeah.
a way where any other person we'd met before, I was like,
Yeah.
I can see why they're working with them now, but I don't necessarily think like they should join up and be like a party together. But with Katya, I was like, they need to keep her. I was like, they
Yeah.
need to keep her. This, no matter what Hecla says, like, keep her.
Yeah.
Get her on your side.
And I think that he's kind of cured of that like I mean, I wouldn't say he's like super trusting, but like his like
Rose
kind of
colored
wanting his
glasses.
yeah, like his wanting to like save everybody,
Mhm.
I think is kind of cured in book 3 after everything that happens with Katya and Hekla and everything.
Mhm.
So I won't spoil that or anything, but that's a whole storyline that plays
Yeah.
out in book 3, and it's really good. Again, the more we talk about it, I'm like, I think book 3 is my favorite so far. I really like it, and so I'm interested to see if you change your mind, Sam, if you reread book 3 or whatever for the next podcast or
I didn't
whatever. But
dislike book 3. It was just, it was a lot. It was a
yeah,
lot. There was
it's
a
a
lot
lot.
going on.
Yeah,
So many things happened, and just by the end, I was like, "Shit, I need to reread this," because like one pass was not enough.
right, for sure. Last thing about Katya, I have this great quote where she finally gets to look in a mirror because she's bad at like sculpting her face at first. She gets way better at it later on, but she like Carl has like a mirror, and so she's able to use a mirror for the first time, and she looks at it and says, "Oh my God, I look like a Juan Gris painting." And Carl's narration is, I didn't know who Juan Gris was, but I imagine he sucked at painting faces.
Yep.
It's so fucking funny.
Mm.
Uh, so with that, we are going to end the episode and kind of wrap up, doing like a quick final thoughts thing. For me, I think that like I love the books so far. I've been super addicted to them. I think the only two things for me are that I worry about the lack of an outline for the overall series. I kind of hope that maybe at this point, like around book 7, he's kind of figured out at least like where he wants the series to go and like what he wants to do with it. Um, because I think that without an outline, series tend to go like way off track, and I really hope it doesn't go down that route. I also worry about it going on for too long. I think that a lot of lit RPG series have a tendency to go on for like, because I think The Wandering Inn is like dozens and dozens of books long. And so I hope that he's got an end point in mind
Mhm.
and we're going to that end point so that it's not like just going on forever and ever and ever and ever.
Mhm.
So those are my two big worries. Um, but everything else, I've been enjoying everything a lot, and I think that every book is really interesting in its own way, and every book brings something new, so you're not seeing the same thing over and over. And I've really been enjoying what I've been reading, and we even get a glimpse early on, or maybe it's in book 2, I think, where they show a clip from a previous season of like a super leveled up crawler going to fight like this big like elemental boss thing,
Mhm.
and Carl is like, holy shit, like, is that what I'm in for on like the 12th floor or whatever? Like, that's insane. Like, I can't ever imagine being that leveled up. Um, and it makes me eager to see where they go, and like how he levels up is same thing like with Cradle, where by the end of the series of Cradle, like the main character, I forget his name, but the main character is like so like god tier leveled up where it's like way different than it was at the beginning. And so I'm really excited for Carl to become just like this super badass like
Mhm.
monstrosity of a character. Super cool.
Mhm. Same.
Yeah. I also love all his tools. Like I love the tools that we keep getting, like his high ally thing that he has on his arm that like slings bombs.
Is this
And
Terra?
what's that?
Is this Terra?
Yeah, Hystera. And there's another thing he gets to. Oh, his gauntlets that have the spikes, his knee pads that have the spikes.
Mm.
There's all sorts of cool like items that he gets, and I really love all of those. And of course the upgrades from Mongo, where he gets the things that go over his teeth that are like electric.
Yeah.
I love that, like where he's like afraid of it at first, and then when he realized that it doesn't hurt him, he's like going around just like chomping at everything, making sparks fly.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the rest of them. Any final thoughts from you guys?
No, I think we really covered everything. I'm more excited to get to book 3 and 4 soon. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to talk about how we want to do that. I assume that everyone will want to keep going on with Dungeon Crawler Carl. We don't have to do like episodes on every book or whatever, but if you guys want to, I'd be down.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, we are going to wrap it up there. Remember to check the description for all our links. We got Twitter, Discord, and Patreon down there. With Patreon, you can watch these episodes live as we record them and hang out with us and talk about books with us during the episode. And you get to see these episodes way before anybody on YouTube does. So definitely check us out there, and it supports the channel. I'm assuming that we'll have more Dungeon Crawler Carl. God, that's a hard title to say. We'll have more DCC content coming soon. I have a video that's in the works that I'm writing the script for that I will do like as a review for you guys. So that'll at least be coming out. But we'll figure out what our schedule with these will be pretty soon here. So hit that subscribe button if you liked what you saw here and want to see more of it. And thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, blurp, blurp.
Blurp, blurp.
Glurp, glurp.
I just stuffed so many chips down my throat and like.